Right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anay Prakash. I'm a programmer at Maysles Documentary Center in Harlem, New York. We're really proud to be hosting the Black Panther Party Film Festival. Thank you for joining us for this intergenerational conversation. If you're not familiar with Maysles, we're a 51-seat or 56-seat cinema in Harlem. Currently, though, most of our programming is happening online. We do have a Sidewalk Cinema series happening on Fridays, thanks to those of you who joined us last night. And we'd be happy to see you next week as well. I'm right now going to throw it over to BJ of the Black Panther Commemoration Committee of the New York Black Panther Party. And thank you all again for joining us. I think this is going to be a wonderful panel.
Hello, everyone. I just want to thank you for joining the Black Panther Party Film Festival. The Black Panther Party Commemoration Committee was started on the 37th anniversary of the Black Panther Party, the founding of the party. It was to honor Sister Safia Bakari, who was a staunch supporter of political prisoners. When she passed away, we said, we're going to take up her work. This is our 12th annual film festival. All the proceeds of the festival go to commissary for political prisoners, aid when their families need it, financial support for fallen comrades. And recently, just this past year, we have been supporting the events of the Black Panther Cubs, who have come together and decided they will be activists. And I say right on to them. We received a letter from one of the political prisoners that said, oh man, that money that you sent came right on time. I needed a pair of sneakers. We also was able to supply gas for a mother of the political prisoners so they could travel up to see her son and take his children with her. And just FYI, from Brooklyn to the prison was a 6-hour drive. So we were able to help. So, and later on, King will tell you how, King Downey, which is a member of the committee, will tell you how to continue to support our efforts. But I'd like to ask everybody that's watching to go online and check out one of our films, because that's also the way you can support us. So King Downey is the moderator today, and I'll turn it over to him. King Downey.
BJ got so much fire. Props to you. Veteran Black Panther Party member and Black Panther Party Commemoration Committee member, and one of the driving forces behind making this happen. So y'all, welcome to the 12th annual Black Panther Party Film Festival, presented by the New York Black Panther Commemoration Committee and Maysles Cinema. And I want to give a big shout to Maysles Cinema. They have always been here for us, and not only as a cinema, but as a cinema that was created by the Maysles brothers, those famous documentarians, to bring filmmaking and films into the community. They were a little shy earlier, didn't say all about that, but we've got people from the Harlem community and elsewhere going in there and learning documentary skills, and films that will not be seen elsewhere are being shown in this cinema, giving a voice to the voiceless. And that's how we end up here. And so our festival started on Sunday, October 4th, and until there's an upcoming surprise announcement, it's going to be running for a couple of more weeks, but somebody else will be adding something about that. This year's theme is Point 7 of the Black Panther Party platform. We want an immediate end to police brutality and the murder of Black people, other people of color, and all oppressed people in the United States. And so towards that end, for 12 years, we have been bringing meaningful films to you. And I'm going to let you all know, first, I should have started right off. Thank you for joining us today. There are so many things that people can think about doing on a Saturday afternoon. We're glad you took the time with us, and we're going to make it worth your while. We've got a strong lineup of people, a multi-generational lineup of people who are going to be speaking on their work and their connection to the films. So let me name the films. That's part of the point of having you join. You can go online at any point and you can get yourself a virtual seat to see any of these powerful movies. I'll run through the list now. The first one is My People Are Rising by Rafael Flores, and that's a 2017 film. And that's featuring our own panelist here and Black Panther Party veteran, Aaron Dixon. In an era of stark racial justice, Aaron Dixon dedicated his life to revolution, founding the Seattle chapter of the Black Panther Party in 1968 at age 19. My People Are Rising, in My People Are Rising, he traces the course of his own radicalization and that of a generation. And we witnessed the courage and commitment of the young members of the Black Panther Party. And that's going to be screened with Black revolutionaries and acupuncture. In the 70s, Black revolutionaries used acupuncture as a way to serve the people. In Oakland, Dr. Tolbert Small, the people's doctor, incorporated acupuncture into his medical toolkit after returning from a trip to China on a Black Panther Party delegation. And closer to home, in 1972, in the South Bronx, political prisoner Dr. Mutulu Shakur, also a member of the Republic of New Africa, also worked with the party and introduced acupuncture to Lincoln Detox Center in the South Bronx. Another film that we'll be showing is True Justice, and that's by George Curlin and Teddy Curlin and Peter Kuhnhart, and that's from 2019. Told primarily in his own words, True Justice shares Brian Stevenson, and that's an activist, his experience with the criminal justice system, that he said treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. Next film, who also featuring one of our panelists today, is the film Cruel and Unusual. That tells the story of the Angola three remarkable men, Robert King, Herbert Wallace, and Albert Woodfox, who as members of the Black Panther Party have been fighting for justice since the early 70s. For decades, they were left forgotten in the depths of America's bloodiest prison, Angola prison. Between them, they spent over a century in solitary confinement, and we will be hearing from Robert King later. Another film, this is turning now to the conditions which led to the creation of Black Panther Party, and that's police brutality. The next film on this list is Every Mother's Son, and that tells the story of Anthony Baez, who was killed during a football game when police officer Francis Lavoti put him in an illegal chokehold. Ring any bells with any of you? That was in '94, and it's still going on to this day. The film also features the story of Amadou Diallo, who was unarmed when he was shot 41 times by police in his doorway in the Bronx. It tells the third story of Gary Gideon Bush, who was pepper sprayed and shot to death while holding a small hammer. And it's a small religious hammer that was probably about that big. Their stories are tragic, and the courage shown by the mothers heroic. They all became parts of the movement. And so our next film is The First Rainbow Coalition. And that tells the story of Chicago 1969, when activists from the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the Young Patriots, it's a white group, united Blacks, Latinx people, and poor whites to confront police brutality and unfair housing practices in one of America's most segregated cities. That's Chicago. And so also we have Stay Woke, Black Lives Matter documentary from 2016, chronicles the evolution of Black Lives Matter movement. Then Black Lives Matter, The Disruptors. The Fifth Estate takes you inside the movement with people who helped build it. And that's our lineup. And so you've got time to go in, register, and become part of this year's festival in the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of that. Now, the reason why this festival goes, as BJ has said, is that the goal is that all the proceeds that are raised above and beyond our expenses go to the political prisoners and their commissaries. And I'm going to put this right up front, that you can go to the following link in order to make your donation. And this will come up again and again, and maybe while I'm doing this, somebody can type it into the chat. Go to www.naabpp.org. www.naabpp.org. Or you can go to the Maysles Cinema page and click on the link that will take you directly there to make your donation in support of the political prisoners. They're getting out a little at a time, but many of them are still behind bars and many of them have many needs. So the films are available on a sliding scale, and there are also rates for students, seniors, and the unemployed and the underemployed. And I will keep saying it, the proceeds go directly to supporting the Black Panther Party and Maysles Cinema's effort to meet the costs of this, and the additional donations can be made in the way I just said to the commissary for Black Panther Party political prisoners. Now, let's get on to our guests. But first, I want to just describe one housekeeping piece here. There is a chat room, and if you have a comment or a question that you would like to make, feel free to share it. Just click on a chat that you're sending to everyone. And as I see those come up, I can raise those with the panelists. And we're hoping to leave time at the end only for your questions so that this can be participatory. So our guests are Aaron Dixon, co-founder of the Seattle Black Panther Party chapter and subject of the film, My People Are Rising. Ksisay Sadiki, Panther Cob. Panther Cob is the next generation, the offspring of Panthers. She's also an artivist, an activist who combines activism with art. And she's the daughter of a political prisoner and a Black Panther Party veteran. Robert King, freed political prisoner, member of the Angola 3 and subject of the film Cruel and Unusual. Valerie Haynes of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, and Hawk Newsome from Black Lives Matter, New York. And so if it's okay with you, I would like to start with the movement that led to the political prisoners, and that was the subject of My People Are Rising. Then talk about the political prisoners themselves, who we also have here with us, and that would be Robert King and Valerie Haynes after Aaron Dixon is finished. That would also include Ksisay Sadiki in that part of the conversation. And then in the end, we'll circle back to what is to be done. Because as Kwame Ture said, we are past the time for description. The time is now for prescription. So what are we going to do about this? We're not going to just watch film. We're going to take action. And when we circle back, that will also bring up the next generational questions where Ksisay Sadiki, Hawk Newsome will kick it all off, and then we'll just take it and see where it goes. I'm going to ask the panelists that it seems like we have a long time, but we really don't if we want to make sure everyone gets their words in. I'll ask you all to be brief. It's not going to be one where you say everything and then you don't have anything else to say until the Q&A part. We're going to just focus on the questions, give as brief an answer as you can, and then that way I'm hoping to just keep rotating through people all the way through. Each one look out for each other. So I would like to start with Aaron Dixon, because that film, My People Are Rising, deals with the issues and conditions that led to the movements that led to the political prisoners. So Aaron Dixon, tell us how you got started in the Black Panther Party, and welcome to the intergenerational conversation.
Thank you, I'm glad to be here. I got started the same way I think a lot of people all across can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I got involved in the party around the time a lot of people across the country got involved, not just in the party, but other militant movements. And that was with the assassination of Martin Luther King. And when Martin Luther King was assassinated, the very next day, Panther, the first Panther to join the Black Panther Party, little Bobby Hutton, was also murdered. And I was in jail when when I heard about Martin Luther King, I was in jail with some other organizers when we heard about it. And so, of course, all of us were very angry, but I decided at that moment, while I was in jail that night, that my picket sign was going to be replaced by the gun, because I had been involved in the civil rights movement for a while. And so when I got out, me and some other people ended up down in Oakland, California at a Black Student Union conference. And they just so happened to be holding the funeral of little Bobby Hutton. So we attended the funeral of little Bobby Hutton, and we also met Bobby Seale, and we told him we wanted the Seattle chapter. We wanted the chapter of the Black Panther Party in Seattle. So a week later, he comes to Seattle, and we become the first chapter outside of the state of California. And as I mentioned, all across the country, when Martin Luther King was killed, they killed the civil rights movement. So a lot of young people decided that it was time to, to be involved in a more militant movement. And so that's when you begin to see not just the Black Panther Party, but AIM and the Brown Berets and the Young Patriots and a lot of other organizations begin to explode all across the country.
And just give us a quick tour of the film that people will be able to see, My People Are Rising. Tell us what part of the film stood out to you as a person who participated and whose story it documented.
Well, I think there's a lot of little things in there, but I think detailing the murder of Martin Luther King and the riots that took place when Martin Luther King was killed. It's interesting to note that when the riots started to take place across the country after Martin Luther King was killed, that Huey gave the orders for party members in the Bay Area to go out on the street and stop the people from rioting, because he understood that the riots were more of it was based on anger, but it was more detrimental for the Black community. So, I think that's one of the important things that stands out, because that was the beginning of the spread of the Black Panther Party. And that really, the Black Panther Party began in '66. It began when Malcolm X was assassinated. And so, but it really expanded when Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to you. You are now part of the Maysles Cinema Black Panther Party Film Festival. This is the intergenerational panel, and we've got a whole host of folks who are going to be speaking about their experiences, their connection to the movement and to the political prisoners. We just heard from Aaron Dixon. We're going to urge you at all points to please go to www.naabpp.org to make your donation to see this festival continue, but also to make your contributions to the commissary of those who are still held behind bars as political prisoners. I'm going to constantly do that. And the more pledges we get up front, the less time I'll be pitching this as we go on, because we know we'll be making some progress here. So now I would like to turn to Robert King, free political prisoner, Angola 3 member, and subject of the film Cruel and Unusual. And talk about Unusual. What was your direction that took you into the Black Panther Party?
Oh yeah, well, like my comrade and former brother, Aaron Dixon, who just spoke, I had heard about, different movements, and was not. And even though my time was some years before his time, I started out, to make a long story short, I started out in a juvenile system in which 4 people were charged with a crime in which only 2 people had committed, but 4 people ended up going to a reformatory. And some unlikely things happened along the way. After reformatory, there was another incident that took place in which 4 people had committed a crime. At least 2 people had committed a crime, but 4 people who were arrested, 5 people were arrested, were charged with this crime. And in both of those crimes, I was one of the ones who were charged, despite the fact that there were only 2 people who had committed the crime. In each of these cases, I seem to have been thrown in a bunch. And that began my thinking. I think I was still in my early teens at that time, but it began my thinking And as I grew and as I began to see in thoughts, I ended up again going to prison, like I say, being charged in a crime in which 2 people had committed and 4 people were charged with it. He got threatened us into pleading guilty to a crime in which we hadn't committed, at least 2 of us anyway. And they have done this in prior cases. The time in which we had went to Scotland, some of us who had went to Scotland, many were beaten into pleading guilty to crimes in which they hadn't committed. So these are the type of things that kind of had me geared toward questioning a system that they say was, that was legal. And I began to, at that time, question what was legal. And I began to do, after, going to Angola, which was at the time considered the worst prison in the nation for the first time, receiving a 10-year sentence, pleading guilty for a crime that I hadn't committed, and ended up doing 3 years for it. I began to look at things in a much more deeper sense. And it was about this time that Malcolm came on the set. I had begun to hear about Malcolm, and even before him, I had heard about Martin Luther King because I was around at that time, a teenager. And then I heard about Elijah Muhammad even before Malcolm, but it was Malcolm that had got my attention quite a bit while I was in prison the first time. But what happened, I steered away from Malcolm, got off into something else, got off into something that aided me later on or down the line. I got off into Christianity. I began to do a lot of reading, and in that process of reading, I went beyond the things that I read in the 66 books in the Bible. And then that kind of set the stage for when I was released from prison, in the mid-60s and so forth. Then the Black Panther Party, like Brother Dixon said I began to hear about them around 1966. And I began to look at their concept. I didn't even enter slavery. I went to school and they didn't teach much about slavery, except that we worked in cotton fields and so forth. But the history and the true history of slavery was something that they just overlooked. And I didn't know anything about it. But then I began to, my interest got nerds, and I began to look into these things, and I began to make the connection. And it was then therein that I made the connection as to why things were the way they were, especially with blacks in America. I understood the system of slavery, and I understood Jim Crow. I understood all of the amendment that was attached to our so-called freedom. And then the Black Panther Party came along and said, wow, Malcolm said good, beautiful things, and I loved him, embraced him. It was the Black Panther Party that nourished my political, it gave me the appetite to become more politicized, because when they said we want freedom, power to determine our destiny, we want an immediate end to police brutality and in the black community, so forth and so on. These were things that I had been victimized to. I had seen these things. I could not articulate these things, but it was the Black Panther Party who began to articulate these things for me. So it was this other Joseph in prison after being convicted for this crime, in which they had offered me, which was another conviction, that offered me a 15-year sentence. I refused to take this 15 years, so they decided to bring me to trial and give me a 35-year sentence. And it was at that time I had put everything in context. I had determined myself, without being able to identify it, I had determined myself a slave. I had determined that they had classified me as a slave. They were treating me as a slave. And the only right that I had was the right to rebel. And someone else had said that, and I embraced this concept. I had that one right to rebel. I went to trial. They offered me a sentence. I refused that, and they gave me what they wanted to give me, and I took out. I escaped. And that was when I escaped, and I'm admitting this on screen, that was the beautiful, most goodest feeling I've ever felt in my life when I took out that New Orleans Parish prison, opened the doors, and 13 more people came out behind me and he crossed the fence on Broad Street. I felt so relieved. I felt relieved. I felt as free as I have ever been. And it was at that time again that all this stuff came together, and I embraced my struggle. I was able to interpret what had happened to me and my people, and I understood the immorality, not just the legality. I began to distinguish between that which is legal, because it was legal to own slaves. It wasn't until people saw it as being something immoral that people really grasped it as a whole. Because you could grasp something that is immoral, but something that is legal, have legal precepts, they could all around the truth. You could be found guilty of a crime that you didn't commit and be sentenced to the electric chair and die from a legal precept. So this is the thing that we begin to challenge. Herman Abbott and I, we begin to interpret the system, and we begin to get some legal precepts on our belt, get some other knowledge on our belt, and we begin to reinterpret our condition. And we figure while we interpret and understand the legality of it, we have to emphasize and re-emphasize and keep emphasizing the amorality of it, because it is a thing that people cling to.
Robert, appreciate that. I want to let folks know you are here, part of the intergenerational panel sponsored by the 12th Annual Black Panther Film Festival, sponsored by the Black Panther Commemoration Committee in conjunction with Maysles Cinema, longtime supporter of that. We're going to continue the conversation, but I'm always going to take a point and break to say that the point of this is, of course, education, political education, to bring people to awareness of the past and current conditions, but also to materially assist the political prisoners in their needs while they are still behind bars. And it's important that if you feel any of that you go to www.naabpp.org to make a contribution to support the cost of this, but to also provide the necessary commissary needs. Brother BJ gave some examples. We have many more of that. And if you look in the chat, you'll see the link. You may be able to click right on and make your donation. Now, we're going to turn to one of the things that I was taught. I was a community worker for the Black Panther Party. One of the things I was taught was this saying, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, determine its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. And so now we're going to turn to this same part of the story about the originals by turning to the next generation. And they are, within the party, are called the Panther Cubs. And the Cubs have a story that I have to lean forward to say there's nobody who can tell the story from the point of view of veteran Black Panther Party than their children, grandchildren, their offspring. And so we're proud to have with us Ksisay Sadiki, who is not only a Panther Cub, as I said earlier, she's an artivist, but she is not only the daughter of a political prisoner, but the daughter of a Black Panther Party veteran. Now, Ksisay, we're going to get to the second part, the political prisoner part, in the second round. But please tell us who your parents are and how they got involved in the party, and then what their current situation is.
Peace, everyone. My parents are Pamela Hanna, who's from the Jamaica branch, and my father is Ksisay Sadiki, who also is from Jamaica branch. It's interesting because they actually met. My parents became Black Panthers at a very young age. I think a lot of Panthers became Black Panthers at a young age. But my parents were, my mother joined the party actually when she was 14, going on 15. And my father was like 17. And my father was also influenced by Stokely Carmichael and Malcolm X. And he also had to take the position, also being influenced by, Dr. King, but deciding what his mission was about. And so he felt that he had to, join the party and be educated too, because I know this for a fact that you couldn't just join the party and pick up a gun, you had to read. So that was something that my father talked about a lot. And so my mom too joined the party. Again, they became comrades and best friends. Just moving forward. Also, my father, so you want to know what happened to my father was a Panther and was arrested in 1976. So I was a little girl. And then and I was able to spend a lot of years with my father, my parents, them trying to under the circumstances, you know, and there's a lot that I experienced growing up as a Panther baby and growing up seeing my parents my father go into court and everything. So my father got out of prison. We tried to create just like a normal life. You know, my sister also is Kikuyu Shakur. Her mom is Asada. And yeah, so we were just trying to be a good, normal family. Moving forward, my father was rearrested in 2006 for a case from 1971 and for not agreeing to bring Asada back. And so I said, yeah, 2000, I'm not sure what year I said, but 2003, sentenced to a life plus 10 years in prison. And so for me, I've experienced the double, I guess, yeah, I've experienced my father going into prison as a baby and then going back to prison. And so rather than being a victim of that, I feel, and it's my mission to educate people about the history of the Black Panthers, to humanize Black Panthers as not just being the heroes, but also just being human, being people, you know, making big sacrifices and stuff. And so yeah, I've, you know, part of my mission now, as I use art as a tool, I have had a play, one woman show, to just bring to life my parents and the experiences and growing up as a Cub, you know, reconnecting with a lot of Cubs. And I've also taken some art classes. I've been doing some 3D animation stuff. I do everything in terms of to also just release what it is that I feel as a Cub. And
okay, you're letting some of the cat out of the bag because we want to get to the present day work. But I'm glad you gave them a taste. So if you were just wondering what the Artivist side of the Panthers and the Panther Cubs are, stick around. You know, stay with us until the end here. So we're going to wrap this section up by getting an update. Now, you've heard the stories of a few of the political prisoners, probably a total maybe of 4 now, maybe 5 altogether, but there are many more than that. And there are people around the world who are working on their behalf. And we have one with us now. That's Valerie Haynes from the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition. And she's going to give us an overview of who's where and what's what. Valerie, welcome to the intergenerational conversation.
Peace, King.
Peace.
Thank you for having me. Peace to everybody on the panel. I'm honored to be a part of this panel. So just for the time issue, I have like a 12 PP updates, but I'll keep them brief. And King, if you have to cut me off or just give me a heads up, just let me know, okay?
No, you're good.
So just to introduce myself, my name is Valerie, and I'm part of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, which was founded in 2015 by former political prisoner Sekou Odinga and other former political prisoners. And we are a committee of activists and community members who advocate and support political prisoners. And our goal is to not only educate people on the existence of political prisoners, which are people who have been incarcerated for their political ideas, actions, and beliefs, but also to, you know, change the narrative of resistance and how, you know, they're in prison because, you know, their resistance was criminalized. So I just want to put that out there so people understand that context, why they are still incarcerated, why they were incarcerated, and why they have such a difficult time, you know, being released. So I'm going to start with our oldest political prisoner. His name is Sundiata Kohli. He's actually the co-defendant of Assata Shakur, and he was captured in May 1973 as she was. And Sundiata has been in prison since 1973 and denied parole since he became eligible in 92. So again, he's 83 years old, and he actually contracted COVID-19. So, you know, in the wake of this pandemic, we have submitted a letter to the governor for him to be released compassionately, you know, due to his age and pre-existing conditions. But that hasn't happened. So right now, in terms of what's going on with him, there's a big legal campaign to help his attorney go back into court to fight this parole appeal parole denial appeal. So if you want to know more information, you can go to sundiataacoli.org. Our next brother is Russell Maroon Schultz, who's 77 years old. He's currently at SCI Dallas, and he's been in prison since 1972. And right now he's suffering from colorectal cancer. And Maroon, he's been doing chemo for over a year. And so there's a big campaign to free him, obviously because he has cancer, but also because he's been in prison for almost 48 years. So if you want info about him, you go to russellmaroonschultz.wordpress.com. The next brother I'm going to mention is Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who's 70 years old. He's been in prison since 1986, and Dr. Shakur has bone cancer, and he was denied compassionate release more than 3 times, and he's been eligible for parole since 2016. So if you go to matulushakur.com, there's more information. You can also go to an Instagram page, which is free Dr. M. Shakur. Imam Jamil Alamin, our next political prisoner, is 76 years old. He's suffering from myeloma cancer. He's been in prison since 2000. And right now there's a current campaign with his son and students to free Imam Jamil Amin. And they're pushing for a new trial right now. So for more info about him, you can go to studentsforimamjamil@gmail.com. You can also go to the Imam Jamil Action Network website. Our next prisoner is Veronza Bowers, who's 75 years old. He's been in prison since 1973. In 2005, he was granted parole. However, the day that he was set to be released, he was called back, and he wasn't able to be released by the U.S. Attorney, Gonzalez. So right now there's a campaign. You know, he's struggling right now to get, due to mitigating conditions, his age, his health, because he just, he had cancer, but he's in remission right now. And right now they're struggling right now to get home confinement. So he's waiting for word from the warden actually. And I inshallah, you know, he'll get that release from the warden. Ksisay will speak about her dad, Ksisay Sadiki. Our next PP is Ed Poindexter, 75 years old. He's been in prison since 1971. And Ed Poindexter was part of the Omaha, Nebraska Black Panther Party. And right now there's a campaign, a letter campaign to the board of pardons in Nebraska. So for more information about that, you can email freedomfored@gmail.com. Our next brother is Mumia, who's been in prison since 81. He's 67 years old. He's in prison in Pennsylvania. And there's a recent campaign, well, it's not recent, it's been going on for a long time, but he recently got a favorable court decision. So they're fighting right now to get a new trial. Chip Fitzgerald, who's been in prison since 63, is 74 years old. Rushell McGee has been in prison since
Longest held Panther.
I'm sorry. What you say, BJ?
He's the longest held Panther.
Yes, and he's out in California, and so is Chip Fitzgerald. So in terms of updates, I know that both of them submitted compassionate release to the Governor Newsome in California, and that's still pending. My next brother is David Gilbert. He's in New York State. He's one of our anti-imperialist political prisoners, and he's been in prison since 1981. He's 76, and right now there's a campaign with the release agent people in prison, and they're trying to get these elder parole bills passed because David got a 75-year life sentence, so he's not eligible for parole. So they're trying to pass these elder parole bills. So you can go to rapcampaign.com for more information about David. And I'm saving the best for last. Our last political prisoner is Jaleel Mutakim. He was incarcerated since he was 19 years old, 1971. And he was released from prison on Wednesday, October 7th, after 50 years in prison. And he's home now. So, you know, victory is always certain. We just have to keep fighting. So free all our PPs, free them all. And thank you for this platform, King.
I know.
Free them all.
Free them all.
read them all.
King, let me add something. When black
We can't.
All right. So I'm sorry, I was muted. I was saying that when Valerie, and thank you, Valerie, when Valerie said Mumia, she was talking about Mumia Abu Jamal, the long-held political prisoner. Some folks maybe not know his full name. Go ahead, BJ, before we hear from Ksisay. Okay. Well, while we're waiting to get,
we started our Black Panther Party Film Festival, it was 24 Black Panther
BJ, we're not able to hear
now
you.
there is 11. 8 were freed. 8 were freed. There were 11 left. The rest died behind the walls. 11 left.
Could somebody type what he said, the numbers that he was talking about, type them into the chat, and then we'll be able to hear them. And then when we get him back on clearly, then we can have him repeat that. So I'd like to turn to Ksisay Sadiki, who will tell us about the last but not least of the political prisoners, her father.
Yes, again, my father, Ksisay Sadiki, is currently at Augusta State Medical Facility. You know, he's in prison. They've given him life plus 10. He's also has been sick in the past. He's had a lot of health issues, and so I've had to really advocate for my father. You know, again, I'm in contact with him. We email each other. I'm in contact. I asked for updates. Again, when they were in quarantine for COVID, a lot of the brothers there were I think 2 brothers died, who were right near him in this, like in the same similar cell. So I'm always just, you know, concerned about his health, always. I just want to mention too that recently I have become a fellow, doing a fellowship with dealing with just campaign strategies and working with MXGM. I just joined this fellowship so that we can really bring, again, awareness to all the political prisoners. And I think that it's important, even just not as a daughter, and because being a daughter of a political prisoner, it's like, I've had to learn too about the legalities and not just taking an emotional approach, but really understanding my father's case and what has happened to him. So I'm actually in a position now to educate myself. You know, I work at the New York Immigration Coalition, where I'm on a policy team and learning about what it's really, what campaign, you know, what it's really about, like raising awareness and educating people, and the kind of building a campaign and what kind of work it is that I need to do. And I'm learning that so that I can get my pops out of prison. So that's my mission.
I gotta stop muting myself and not unmuting myself. Congratulations on the fellowship, and MXMG that Ksisay referred to as the Malcolm X grassroots movement, longtime activists around political prisoners, police brutality, cop watch, you name it. So we're gonna shift into the present day, because remember, we're moving from description to prescription. I want to urge folks to go back and check out the films, going to Maysles.org and look at the films. That's the point of this, is to attract you to the films so that you will participate, and your money, your donations to see the films will go towards the needs of the political prisoners after we meet the costs. And then any additional donations that you make will also go, donations that you make to www.naabpp.org, it's in the chat, will be additional monies that will go to help those that we're still trying to get out. So now let's turn to the present generation, and we're going to hear from Ksisay right after we hear from this next brother. This is Hawk Newsome from Black Lives Matter, New York. And the question that I'm going to just combine things in the interest of time. So I'd like you to tell something about the organization, and then the legacy of the Black Panther Party was building a movement while also creating community programs, later known as survival programs, to also not only assist the community in the present time while moving towards a different structure, but also to build loyalty and to help people in the current moment. So could you talk about the origins of your Black Lives Matter chapter, and then how you see the way the Black Panther Party operated, how you see Black Lives Matter operating versus that, or relative to that?
Well, I just want to say thank you, King. Thank you to the Black Panther Party for having me to be a part of this. When Brother Cyril, Brother Bullwhip gave me a shout, I was truly honored to do this. Black Lives Matter Greater New York was founded in 2016 because there wasn't a real militant Black Lives Matter group in New York City that was really there responding to the calls, standing up to the police, just bringing community awareness. So we created the group, and we've been at the forefront ever since. As most of you know, one of the Black Panther Party, as well as Malcolm X, used the media as a weapon, right? So we find ways to get really militant messages out in front of the masses, out to the masses. And a lot of times I'm just amazed that they'd actually play some of the messaging on the local news and things of that nature. Just to give a little bit of history about me, my parents met at a civil rights rally in 1969. My mother had strict Christian Southern parents, so she would have to lie and sneak out to attend Black Panther meetings. Some of the most influential people in my development as an organizer have been Black Panthers. There was Bruce Richards, who told me in a march from New York to Washington, D.C. I was amazed because this man was like 70, marching across 4 states. And he was like, you know, Hawk, what we have to learn to do is avoid points of contention. You're a Christian, he's a Muslim, all right, you don't agree on God, but let's focus on what you do agree on, so there'll be less strife, so that you can work and move toward, toward our liberation. I also had a brother named Malik Rahim, who's out of Louisiana, right? And Malik Rahim, I was in law school, and we went down to Louisiana to do some pro bono legal services, and I spent the whole time with Brother Malik Rahim. But the most important thing he taught me was that you can shame people into doing the right things. He taught me the importance of shame campaigns. So now, we're here. We've been here marching for the last 4 years. We were shutting down highways with 3 and 7 people. And now it's amazing that, we have this rush after George Floyd where you have 3,000 and 7,000 people, but we also appreciate the fact that this is like a roller coaster, right? And there'll be highs and there'll be lows, and we're preparing for these low points. Black Lives Matter Greater New York is an independent organization. Sometimes we're a little too aggressive for what Black Lives Matter Global, what their agenda is. And we believe in Black liberation first. And we make that known to everybody, and that doesn't coincide with a lot of people's politics. So if I say that there's anything that we didn't do in these last 5-6 years, as Black Lives Matter movement, we didn't go into the communities and help people the way the Panthers did, right? We didn't do anything structural and on a large scale to really provide services to our people in our communities. So, we gave out food during COVID. We go into the schools, we feed people, we provide kids with Christmas presents, but it's all ad hoc, as needed. So we're stepping away from the Black Lives Matter movement and creating something called Black Opportunities. We're doing that in the Bronx, and we were just down looking at buildings in Atlanta a few days ago. That also, with Black Ops, we're teaching Black liberation, of course, but we're studying several pillars: financial literacy, our true history, giving people a political education, also a legal education, as well as talking about food injustice and how food is the #1 killer of our people. So you have health in that realm. In addition to that, we're also teaching self-defense. We're doing tactical trainings, and that's what we're doing down in Atlanta as well. We want to provide safety and security in addition to an education for our people. And with launching these 2 branches in New York and Georgia, hopefully we can build up and we can grow out. Now is a moment where we are changing the world, but I think in order for us to really carry this on, we got to bring the revolutionary message to our people and our communities in a real intentional way, because even with everything that's happening, our people can't afford to care, right? They just don't have the time. They don't have the resources to care. So we have to bring the message to them and be real intentional about it. And that's what I see the future is for our movement.
Thank you for that. I want to let folks know we've done our first hour of the 12th annual Black Panther Party Film Festival, our first webinar, the intergenerational conversation. And you just heard from Hawk Newsome from Black Lives Matter. And in the last half hour, I wanted to make an opportunity for people to chat. If folks, when you're not on, if you put yourselves on mute, then we'll be able to hear clearly. And then if anyone has any questions or comments, to please put them in the chat. I will look them over and try to consolidate them and give responses. In the meantime, what I would like to do in the last half hour is go 1 round more with everybody in the same order that we took them in. And then I will just ask each person a question. And that's really just to give time for you all to put your questions in, but also give you a little bit of time to recognize the real reason why we're here. And that's for the political prisoners. And the best way that you can support the political prisoners is by getting a ticket and spreading the word about this festival, but also making donations. And you can do that by going to www.naabpp.org and make your donation there. There's a little form that's easy to fill out with all your information. You just put your information there, hit a click, boom, it's done. You'll feel better and you're helping us with this important work. Okay, now on the game shows, they call this the lightning round, because what that means is that we want to make sure everybody has time to say what they got to say, and we still have time to take questions from people. So I'm going to come back around, and please make your question as brief as possible. Who knows, we may even be able to get 2 rounds in here. So please chat your questions in. We'll take those. And I'm going to start with Aaron Dixon, co-founder of the Seattle Black Panther Party chapter, and the subject of My People Are Rising. With this film telling the story in a way that has just not been told many times. I mean, you tell the inside untold story. What is it that you hope that this film will do?
Well, first of all, let me say that I didn't make the film, and it wasn't my idea to make the film. It was this Rafael Flores. He was the idea, and he read the book, and him and his father and I are good friends. So, he wanted to tell this story, but I think most importantly, it's just important to kind of give a somewhat of a peek into what it was like to be in the Black Panther Party, what it was like for, in terms of our daily work and the things that we had to deal with. It wasn't easy being in the Black Panther Party, but at the same time, it was the greatest thing that any of us had ever done. And so I think that was the key, was to really kind of express to the audience, particularly young people, the emotions that we felt as young people back then, and what was pushing us forward, the discipline and the dedication that it took to be members of the Black Panther Party. These are all the things that talked about in my book, and some of these things are also captured in the film. So, you know, I think that was Raphael's point of what he wanted to do, and that was mine as well, is to just really give a deeper look into what it was like to be a member of the Black Panther Party.
Thank you for that. So now I'd like to turn to Robert King. Robert, can you tell us about your Angola 3 comrades and talk to us about Herman and Albert, anything about what they were like, and then wrap it up with why it's important to support the political prisoners to this present day.
Well, yes, Herman and Albert and I, just like myself, Herman and Albert, they became members of the Black Panther Party, and the Louisiana chapter of the Black Panther Party is referred to. As you know, Geronimo Pratt, he was from Louisiana in this area here, and I think he advocated for a Louisiana chapter. But it was Herman and Albert and myself. Herman, there was what they call a shootout here. A brother mentioned Malik Rahim. He was in, I think, one of the first shootout in 1970 or 71 in the shootout down in the Desire Project. And he went to arrested. 12 people initially was arrested in it. I think there were 9 men and 3 women who were arrested initially in that raid. And Herman and Albert, at that time, Herman, Albert, and myself, we were in New Orleans prison doing separate time, doing, you know, charges on separate crimes that we were charged with. And I was on the 5th floor at that time, and Herman and Albert, they were in the New Orleans Parish prison. And when the Panthers were arrested, they eventually put us together. Herman and Albert were on the tier with them. Albert had escaped and had went to New York, which is another story. And anyways, everybody got together, and I came into the Parish prison at the time, came into it, and at that time, Chuck He, who was author of the day at that time, he was officer of the day in a chapter in New Orleans. He was in the second raid, if I'm not believing. They had them strapped in a tier on X tier, they call it, and they had them isolated. And nevertheless, we had a chance to communicate. And Herman and Albert, they sent us, eventually all those Panthers were acquitted, as you know, Malik and them were acquitted by jury. But Herman and Albert and I, who had joined while we were in the New Orleans Parish prison, we had other charges, and they sent us on Angola. And we just continued on our struggle while there. We not only in you know, to join the Black Panther Party, but we joined the struggle. We liked the idea of resisting while we were in prison. And we wanted the same thing that the Black Panther Party wants. So Herman, Albert, and I, we had the same thoughts. They eventually, Albert was charged. Herman and Albert went to prison a couple of months before I did, and they eventually, they knew they were members of the Black Panther Party, and they were charged in alleged crime in which 4 inmates had been charged with in the death of a correction officer. Of course, all this had been proven null and void, and it wasn't guilty. It was a frame of, as it was. Because they were members of the Black Panther Party. And because of my affiliation with the Black Panther Party, even though I wasn't in prison at the time, nevertheless, my connection with them gave them the right, what they call, to put me in a same category with them. I was considered a member of the Black Panther Party. So that year, we converged together in closed cell restriction in CCR, where we were isolated, where they were trying to keep us apart from each other. And we had the same ideals, and our ideas, like I said, coincided, and we began to study. We began to hold class. We began to explain to other prisoners, you know, the need to struggle, the need to keep our dignity alive, even though we were in prison. And if you are innocent of the crime, continue to fight on. We even introduced the members of the Black Panther Party. There were other members of the Black Panther Party as well who was in man prison population, but those who came into where we were in isolation, we welcomed other people into the party. And this is how Zulu got into the member of the Black Panther Party through Herman Wallace. But it was Herman, Albert, and myself, we embraced the struggle. And even despite the fact that the party had, you know, demised somewhat, the struggle went on with us, and we continued that struggle. And even though we were kept in isolation, we continued that struggle, and we kept, because, you know, the struggle is alive, and that's what we embrace. And that's, I think, is the thing that Herman Abbott and I, it resulted in a lot of, you know, people learning about our cases, because we had people gave us, you know, some recognition, like what is being done now with this forum here. And people got on board with us. Amnesty International got on board with us. And as I alluded to earlier, we made our issue out of one of morality. There was time when we all went to court, and the legality of it got diminished, got washed away, but we were still being held. And so combined with our being alleged members of the Black Panther Party, or members of the real members of the struggle in Black Panther Party, and being held in solitary confinement based upon these beliefs, being convicted falsely of crime that neither committed, we had buoyancy, we had morality on our side, and the people understood this. And I think this is why, and we understood this as well, that we could convey our, you know, our feeling, we could convey what we know of the struggle to other people who felt somewhat the way we felt. And we understood this, that we had to be persistent in our doing this. And I think this persistency paid off, because even though I was released after 31 years, 29 in solitary confinement, and Herman was eventually released after 41 years. And even though he succumbed to cancer, which is another story, you know the story, they allowed him to die. And then Albert, after nearly 44 years, he was released from prison, you know, exonerated. And so we are, and so we are here. The legacy that people put around us continues. Albert has become, you know, a good book writer. He's he was in #3 for books. He's still touring places, still speaking about his struggles in prison and why the need that we should continue. And Herman's struggle goes on. We're about to get together with other people who's Herman, and even though he is demised, he won't be forgotten at all. We are trying to get together now to make sure that his voice is still heard. We'll be communicating his voices. You know, we have voices from him. We have speeches from him. We have letters. Albert and I will be taking part in programs like this to make sure his words continue to, you know, the outline. Thank you for that. Know, in the public.
Thank you for that. And you just brought something to mind that way back before we had ever heard of the Angola 3, Malik Rahim, who you referred to, Black Panther Party veteran from New Orleans, came up to New York City and had a meeting with a small group of us. And from out of that meeting, we formed the New York chapter of the Angola 3 committee, and the rest is history. So props to him as well. I just want to turn folks to the chat where BJ had broken up while he was telling us about the number of political prisoners who were Panthers incarcerated when the festival started 12 years ago, and then he talks the numbers down. So go to the chat and read that, and you can see what it was that he was trying to bring up. So now I want to wrap up the political prisoner section. I want to turn back to Valerie Haynes. And I had, you know, I like quotes. And so Kwame Ture, when he was Stokely Carmichael, he said that if the people don't organize themselves, conditions will. So Valerie, you clearly became an organizer. So what conditions or what history or what emotions led you to become such a strong worker on behalf of the political prisoners?
Peace, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I started working with political prisoners. I went to this program in Harlem about celebrating our heroes, and Sekou Odinga was one of the heroes that was being honored. So I started writing him, and I started visiting him, and eventually I joined the defense committee. And, you know, we worked hard to bring him home, and he eventually came home in 2014. So when he came home, he wanted to bring his comrades home, and he formed the NEPPC, which really advocates for and deals with the political prisoners from the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. So I joined the organization, obviously, because, you know, we have work to do. You know, when Sekou came home, it was a victory for the movement, but you know, he had left people behind, so his position was we need to bring him home. So what drives me, what inspires me are the brothers that I'm advocating for, the brothers that I support. You know, I write them, I visit them, and you know, we share stories, we share a part of our lives together. So that really pushes me, and I firmly believe that, you know, it is our duty. And you know, they fought for us, you know, in the 60s and 70s, and they sacrificed their freedom for us. So we need to do the same in the form of organizing and educating people and sharing their stories so that people get involved in this work to bring them all home.
Beautiful, beautiful. She said, it is our duty to fight. It is our duty to win. So now I want to turn to Ksisay, and Ksisay, you are doing the work now. And can you kind of give us the sort of the spectrum from the work that you're doing on behalf of your father as one of the long-held political prisoners, and take us down that spectrum to the cultural work you do and any other work that you consider to be important for this generation?
Well, I just want to say too, I've evolved, you know, to be able to do this work. You know, this is a life commitment for my father and for all, you know, political prisoners and stuff. And so I had to choose to do this work, you know. And so part of the work I'm doing, again, you know, just really understanding the legalities, understanding my father's case, you know, working in policy, knowing how to be strategic and to, you know, approach the state, you know, and council members and stuff. Again, part of the fellowship now is, you know, we're gonna have campaign, write letters and stuff, and just all the fellows really understanding the language and the messaging that we're going to use so that we can bring our family, you know, our loved ones home. I just want to say too that part of the work that I do, I have to also give a shout out to all the Cubs, you know, because we're in communication with each other. We're a family, and we have to we do support each other, because it's not easy doing this work. You know, it's like, it's an emotional process, you know, like to campaign to teach people about who political prisoners are, and to also see your loved ones getting sick. You know, there are times that, again, like recently, both my parents were sick at the same time, you know, and I had to contact the, you know, other Cubs and everything. I had Salah, one of my cousins, Cubs we call each other cousins. And I called her and I was like, Salah, you know, I need you, you know. And so she helped me just dealing with my mom and her illness. So, you know, again, it's not easy. So we have to be supportive of each other. We have to be there for one another. And so also part of my process too is that I am an artist, you know, and what better way to educate folks and stuff through culture, through dance, I'm doing this one, I've been working on this one woman show, and I performed at Maysles Documentary Center, and it was great to do my first performance around my elders to get to get real feedback. And so, but it was also just a wonderful process to become my parents again, you know, to really go through what it was like for them. My father writes me letters, you know, I've collected letters from my father from the 70s till now. So that way of communication. So, you know, I use every way, like through art, through, you know, campaign work, whatever, by any means necessary to like, let people know that we have to bring our political prisoners home. So tell us the name of the play, and also tell us where the name of the play comes from. All right, so, well, the play is, well, I know you said this one, the play is called My Firstborn, but my name Ksisay means this war. And I was, my name when I was born was Tamara, and then my father was like, no, because my daughter So my
Oh,
name
okay.
was, I was named from, it was Twyman Myers that, and he and my pops named me. So, and it means this war, and this is a war we're still going through. So it has great meaning. I appreciate my name now. I didn't as a little girl, but I do. So.
Okay, great. So our wind up now is to go back to Hawk Newsome, involved in the movement now, and just tell us, you know, you are actually a bridge between generations. Sometimes people will refer to you and people like Ksisay as the next generation, but you are actually the next generation behind the veterans, but there's a generation behind you all. So how do you, Hawk, engage
Right on.
with the generation behind the generation behind the generation?
Good question.
Well, that's a phenomenal question.
Yes.
I just want, I'm sure all of you know that the revolution is happening now. There are people in several states. You got Portland. You got folks you got folks in New York. You have folks in Kentucky. There's folks across the country who have been in the streets every day. You know what I mean? Like every single day fighting. And now it's strange because, our profiles grew and we're traveling in different places and we're doing a lot of press and media. We can't be out there every day. So it's our jobs to give them the space to be the radical revolutionaries that they want to be, but just say, hey, you're out there marching 5 hours. What's your message? Okay. What are your demands? What are you pushing for? How are you building? It's another way, another way to help is we send them money. Like you get money requests from across the country. There are activists out here who are fighting every day that can't pay their rent, right? Who don't live in commuter cities or cities with mass transit like we do, that don't have gas for their cars. So that's one way, you kind of meet the needs of people where they are. Secondly, you got to take a step back and amplify those voices. Like if you got young people who are out there and they got the tools, you give them what you can and you move back and give them space so they could go ahead and do what they have to do. Personally, I'm the oldest member of my organization. I'm 43. The next older to me is 35. That's my sister, my co-founder. But the rest of these kids are 20s. Early 20s, you know what I mean? They young and they hungry. So the best thing that we can do is to give them the education they need so they can keep fighting. And definitely to go out there and hold them down. We spent the night in front of the governor's office a little while ago, a few weeks before that. We shut down the George Washington Bridge and the pigs came in with their batons and their riot gear. And, a lot of people scattered and dispersed, but we took to the streets and we out there tussling with the cops. It felt like it was 40 of us, but when I saw the footage, it was like 4 of us in the middle of the street. You know what I mean? So the next step for us is to train people how to move as battalions, how to use shields, how to utilize, I'm also investing in self-defense training. Teaching young people who are out there self-defense so they can protect themselves. Because I'm gonna tell you the truth, these crackers is crazy. Like since when Donald Trump tweeted and called me personally a traitor, and he called me treasonous, which is the only crime that's punishable by a firing squad. He called me treasonous. Since then, that was July, I've gotten over 1,000 death threats. We have an armored car that's on the way. We walk around in body armor every day. The stakes is real high. You know what I mean? And they've been high, but things are really coming to the surface. So you have groups like Donald Trump said, like the Power Proud Boys. You have other militias and things like that. These folks is training for real. And all I'm saying is, I don't want our people to be sitting ducks when they go on to the attack. So it's kind of like our job to just give them some direction and to help get them right. So we can be ready and we can continue this fight for liberation in a safe way, in a way in which we can defend ourselves.
Great. So we have a question, and I'm going to read this question. This question is from, well, I don't know if the person wanted to be identified, But here's the question, and it seems to be guided towards Robert King. How do you analyze? Now we have a few minutes left, so
All right.
take this on as best you can, and I want to just be able to go back around and personally thank each person who's on here. And BJ may have some closing remarks. It looks like he has his hand up, or maybe his fist is in the air, or both.
Right on, man.
So we'll come back. We'll come back after we get a chance to just say goodbye to everybody. But here's the question, Robert. How do you analyze the connection between the repression against the Panthers and the repression that has created what's called mass incarceration? And there's a second part. Is this what you mean? I told you we were going to get back to this, Robert. Is this what you mean by talking about political victims and political prisoners? So there you go, Robert.
Well, yeah, thank you. You put it out there and you answered yourself. I mean, we are talking about, you know, that's a little different. You're talking about political prisoners and political victims. We want to distinguish between, okay, some say that a political prisoner is a person who goes to prison, you know, fighting against the government and the politics that, you know, that unravels their livelihood. On the other hand, another person who may become victimized by an immoral political system or unjust system that no matter what evidence you produce in court, if the evidence, the jury say you are guilty of this evidence, it doesn't matter. You will be held morally responsible for a crime in which you did not commit. So we have to raise the question of what is legitimate, whether we're going to let legality be deified and made holy, or we are going to let morality be the thing, the barometer in which guides us, you know? And this is where we made that difference. So we are guided by the principle, you know, of morality. In other words, knowing and understanding what is legal in our legal, because it was legal to own slaves, like we point this out all the time. Legally, they can kill you. I've known people that go to the electric chair in Angola and die legally, but they were morally innocent of the crime. So I think our fight, while we embrace everything else, we have to deal with the morality, because it wasn't until people say, well, look, slavery is immoral, that the world embraced it, you know.
Yeah, and you just brought to mind when you said that, those of you who remember the MOVE organization, and the MOVE organization had cubs too. I don't know what they called them, but they had their own cubs, and one of the formations that they created was could somebody please mute? Could somebody please mute? Thank you. So they had a cultural group called Seeds of Wisdom, and they had a hip hop song called Just Because It's Legal, Don't Make It Right. And I think that's what you're getting at. So we're going to have another lightning round. This time, I would like you to please limit your comments to how people can get in contact with you, your organization, however you identify yourself or do the work. So let's start with Aaron Dixon. How can people find out more about your work? Is Aaron still on? Aaron, you're on mute. Did you hear?
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I really don't have any way for people to get in contact with me. I do have a web page. It's not on yet, but it will be. You know, they can contact me through my email, aarondixon1@comcast.net. They could find my book, you know, probably just almost at any bookstore, or you could have them order it. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Robert King.
Yes. Then that same question is,
Oh, how can people get more information about you or the campaigns that you're working on?
Cool. Look, we have websites. Go to kingsfreelings@gmail.com, King Yada, And recently, in reference to what you said earlier, we do support. We sent a letter out. My business partner and I, we sent a letter out, and we are trying to, do e-commerce as a result of the pandemic and whatever is going on. We want to, in other words, we have a market. There's a market for Panther material. It's been going on for ages and years. What we're trying to do is, and I have been in contact with Whip and some other people, Adnos and a few other people, and trying to get in touch with Mo BJ in California and so forth. And we are trying to do e-commerce on a wholesale kick. We want to buy it though, wholesale, at some type of reasonable price from the Panther Cob, whoever make clocks and whatever it is, we want to buy. We want to do it on consignment, or we want to buy it in bulk. And we want to put it back out there, and the money that's made from all Panther products will go into a fund to aid whatever you are talking about in support for political prisoners.
Great. So we got to leave it there, King's Pralines. And I have to tell you that I was cleaning up an area, and I found a package of your pralines. I had bought 2, and I ate 1, and I kept the others so that it would be sealed up and would have still have the cat on the outside. So now I got to get some fresh ones. So go to King's Pralines for that. Next, Ksisay, how can people get more information about any part of your work?
Well, people can email me too. That's one way, which is ksadiki1@gmail. I'm in the process of building a campaign for my father, but you also can write my dad and go to the Jericho Movement website too. I always encourage people to write my father. Just writing letters and I think is a great way to connect.
Okay.
So that's
maybe the panelists would mind typing in your contact information into the chat as well, and that way folks can copy it and paste it. Valerie Haynes, how can we get more information about your work? Please make it brief so we can get the last folks in. Valerie, you're on mute. While we're waiting for Valerie, let's go to Hawk. Hawk, how can folks get more information about Black Lives Matter in New York?
Okay, our website is blacklivesmattergreaterny.com. That's spelled out blacklivesmattergreaterny.com. If you want to see our legislative agenda, that's at blackopportunities.com. That also has some parts of rap in it. Personally, it's the letter I-A-M, Hawk Newsome @gmail.com, and I am Hawk.Newsome on Instagram, and I am Hawk Newsome on Twitter. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you all. Please put that into the chat. Let's go back around to Valerie and see if Valerie is here, can give contact information for the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, or you can go on and check your search engine. You can probably tell that I'm a radio person. I do a show, Good Morning Nueva York, on WBAI Radio in New York City, also streaming live and available on demand at WBAI.org. And some of these folks don't know it yet, but they're going to be on my shows coming up. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for being on the intergenerational panel. I think we got a lot of information, heard about a lot of work, but remember, the point is to support the political prisoners. And that may be done by going to www.naabpp.org and make your donation to help them in their commissary. BJ, the last word from you.
Okay, thank you very much, man. I want to thank all the panelists. It was a great discussion. But what I want folks to do, if you have Facebook, go to William Johnson and share the information for the film festival. We need for it to go viral. I know a lot of you are on Facebook. William Johnson, just share it, please. I appreciate everyone.
Thank you. Check out the films, and we'll have another panel on October 15th. In the meantime, support the political prisoners. Free them all.
Free them all.
Free them all. Right on.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.